The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Trangerade and Price may lead the championship as we approach the Dutch Grand Prix, but it is most certainly the likes of Michel Dudignan that many have laid their eyes on. Lurking fewer than 20 points behind the championship leader, the Frenchman has made climbs like this before to claim the crown. However, this season has proven hard to be nailed down, with wins going to 4 different drivers over the first 6 races. We'll see if we get a 5th as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Lotus 49 World Cup. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Vandenbelt. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Johan, honestly, I don't want to try to do anything fancy to set this one up for you and just tell you, welcome home.
Yeah, thank you. Today we visit Circuit Park Zandvoort, probably the most famous racetrack of the Netherlands. This track was opened in 1948 and was the home of the Dutch Grand Prix 30 times. And just like a lot of other circuits, Zandvoort has its roots in World War II history. Where the foundation of tracks like Silverstone was built by the Allies, the Axis constructed the roads on which Zandvoort was later built. The Lotus 49 we see today actually has a lot of history in the Netherlands as well, as it made its official debut in the Dunes in 1967. The car grabbed pole position with Graham Hill setting the quickest lap time, with his teammate Jim Clark winning the race one day later. And to follow in the footsteps of Jim Clark, the drivers today have to face a very challenging circuit. Zandvoort is located in the dunes and it ebbs and flows with the landscape. And to see how this looks like from the driver's point of view, let's hop on board the GSSC Lotus 49 for a lap around Circuit Park Zandvoort.
All right, we've got Ben Zoko in the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Zandvoort. Coming down to Tarzan, this is far and away your best chance for an overtake on this circuit. Don't let the banking fool you though. You can try to pass around the outside, but it's quite difficult. From there, be sure to hold to the left and get ready for Gerlach. This right-hand chink is very single file with a sharp crest. It also leads right into Hugenholtz, which acts like a mirrored version of Tarzan. The big difference here is the exit is an incredibly steep uphill climb. Now in most cars, you're flat out all the way until Schivlag, but in the 49, you're modulating the throttle through Hunsrück and Slotemacher. And then you need a giant lift through turn 5, which brings you directly into the braking for Schivlag. This long sweeping bend's only saving grace is that the hill to the outside means it's unlikely your car will spin all the way into the Armco if you lose it. But from there, we come to the newer infield portion, and first up is the very tight Marlboro. You'll notice that the track keeps up a gentle curve. This tends to catch a few drivers out. Then you'll brake for Renault, which is the first of a set of double hairpins. That doesn't give you much time before you need to swing off to the right to set up for Vodafone. This is a rather critical turn because it takes you onto one of the few long straights of the track. It's also one of the only spots where you're fully on the throttle in the Lotus 49 for more than a second or two. Because of the long braking distances, you're actually on the binders as you come over the rise and then down into the Audi S. Drivers might attempt passes into here, but it's incredibly easy to get tangled up in open-wheel cars. As you carry the speed off the corner, bring it back to the left and then throw out the anchor yet again for Kumho. Don't be afraid to get greedy with a curbing at the apex. From there, you've got to wait patiently through Lyondijk until you can really ease the throttle fully down. Just make sure you don't drift too wide onto the front stretch, and if you held it together, you've now finished a lap around Zandvoort.
There you see the beautiful scenery from inside the cockpit of this classic car. I agree that I just love the way this track goes in and out of the scenery. Now, let's take a look at the very pretty points championship, starting with the F1 driver standings. Ove Trangerade still leads, but it is only 2 points. We have both drop weeks now involved in this. You can see that Ove moves back up to the lead over Dave Price. Nicola Cocci is in a very precarious 3rd place because look who's behind him. I mentioned it in the intro. Michel Dudignan is coming forward. However, he has no drop weeks in hand. He's used both of them. So he's going to have a very good season over the likes of Trangarade and Price to try and take this one away. Marco Kika much farther down in the top 5, but still the Finn has been continuing his very consistent few seasons that he's had here in this car, showing that he has made vast improvement. Now, there is the F2 Championship. Johan, what are we looking at there?
Yeah, it is still the same driver that we have seen for the last few races on top there, Marcellus Breuning. He's still leading the Formula 2 Championship with 41 points scored so far. He's being chased, however, by Andrew Eng, his fellow countryman, only 9 points behind him. Driver that's also closing in, Alex Cameron, is 11 points behind him, and P4 is being shared by Hideki Corfisto and Don Good, with a good result at Summit Point, moving up slightly in the standings.
Now, as we take a look at the Constructors' Championship, which is effectively a Nations Cup. Unfortunately, there is no Dutch representation here in the top 5, but the UK, with Claridge and Price, are leading the way. Trangarade, carrying that Norwegian flag by himself, is way far down and actually competing with Italy. Only Kochi has come forward to score points this season. A bit of a surprise, as we have at least 1 or 2 more Italians joining in. But look at the United States, very, very popular over there in this series, with a lot of drivers coming in to contribute points. Dudignan, the only one to take it up into the top 5 for the Constructors' Championship. What about the race details? Johan, what do we have in store here in the Netherlands?
Yeah, this is the Lotus 49 Championship, round 7 of this 12-round championship. In this season, we have 2 drop weeks marked by those 2 watermarks that you see there. It means that the 2 worst results of each driver will be removed at the end of the season. Now, about today, this circuit, Circuit Park Zandvoort, will host a race of 22 laps. The setups of the drivers are open. That means that they can turn their wheels, turn the knobs just to their liking to really conquer this Dutch dunes. And the scoring system works in such a way that 40 points will go to the victor, 35 for P2, and 30 if you score a 3rd place.
And if you enjoy all this classic racing, you can find more of it on the iRacing Esports Network, including later today with the Camel GT series, but not just the retro stuff, the vintage racing. You can also find the World Championships, many of which have wrapped up for the year. They'll be back again, and indeed you will find lots and lots of racing with the various other networks that we are friends with here on GSRC, such as RaceSpot, LSR TV, and of course the SimSpeed Esports Network. Ove Trangarade, we're watching, currently in 2nd on the qualifying times. Michel Dudignan is up at the top, with Nicola Kochi finding some speed. Waiting to see what Rob Olenek can do on his 2nd lap, because we were watching in the warm-up, Johan, and he was looking very, very fast.
Yeah, exactly. He was only 1/10 behind Mick Claridge. So it was the good, basically benchmark that we saw in that test session. Mick Claridge coming through the last set of corners now for his first time lap. The Arie Luijendijk bocht at the moment. Now, this is a very difficult corner. You want to go on the throttle as soon as possible. Here he finally can go. Going over the start-finish line. Let's see where he ends up. He does a 1:35.2. It's good enough for P2 for Mick Claridge so far.
Significantly, he's about 2/10 down from Michel Dudignan, so he's got a little bit of work to do. Granted, Mick not really in the championship so much as Michel. He's kind of far back. He could still come back into this thing. So we watch AJ Bear yet to get his first time in. Dave Price, 2nd place in the championship. He's got 1 lap time in and a 35.5. He's taken 2 wins so far this season. A little bit of luck on his side on those. He sits in 5th right now as he comes off of Luijendijk. Let's see what this 2nd one holds.
Yeah, well, you could see there on track that he almost lost control in the Kumo bocht. That has hurt his last lap time. He only did a 1:35.6, so 1.5 tenths slower than his first time. And Dave Price will go no better than P5.
Up at the top of the screen, purple went to Michel Dudignan. 34.8 now is the time to beat. So Mick Claridge has even more work to try and ground to gain. And he's got about half a lap to do it. Dimitri Houdeludis puts himself up towards the top of the times. His first lap didn't count. 2nd one with a 35.4 is going to have him in the mix on the 2nd row.
Once again, we can pick up Mick Claridge while he's going through the Kumo bocht. Only 2 more corners to go. And then we'll see if the Brit can take away pole position from Michel Dudignan. Mick Claridge has to win 0.4 of a second. Oh, goes very wide there on the exit of the Arie Luijendijk bocht, and it seems like he immediately gives up. It's not quicker for Mick Claridge, and the Brit has to settle for P2 here in the Netherlands.
Antonio Arcidiacono works his way around. Another Italian, but hasn't scored points quite yet. The fields have been so big that there's actually cases where you could get a 0 out here, something that the drivers aren't used to in past seasons, but is a nice little challenge. I think it definitely makes it worth something in the F2 championship, Johan. The lower drivers really have to try and hustle to get something out of that.
I mean, that's maybe a little bit more fun as well. There's really something at stake here when you drive with this amount of cars. Not only because of the fact, like you mentioned, that you can score 0 points, but if you actually have a very good race, you're clean and you gain a lot of positions in the race, you can score a massive amount of points compared to other people. So it kind of works two ways like that.
Watching Matt Yeomans, he's only got 1 lap in, a 39.3 on the board. But the next driver to get his second time in, and I think the only one, because I'm not sure that Matt can finish this lap, is AJ Bear. He's coming off of Kumho up towards Luijendijk, sitting at a 35.6. AJ is in 8th. He's more known for being quite good at Bathurst, which we aren't at today. Let's see if this also twisty track with not quite as much elevation change helps him out. 35.6. 35.64, I should say, keeps him in 8th place, even though he improves by a little bit.
Yeah, half a tenth quicker for AJ Bear, but there's not enough to win another position, and the driver stays in P8 for now.
Just about 6 seconds left, and poor Matt Yeomans is not going to have enough time, I think, to get this lap in. In fact, he's going to be just shy. So that sets our grid. With the pole, Michel Dudignon leading by a whopping 0.4, nearly half a second over Mick Claridge. Mick seems to be struggling this season to try to be faster than him. Ove Trangrade, though, who has got his own set of wins this season, sits in 3rd. Dimitri Houdaloutis is in 4th. Nicola Kochi will start with P5. Row 3 will be rounded out by Dave Price. Rob Olenek will be starting 7th behind them. AJ Bear next to him. And then Jamie Hall will start in P9 with the top 10 rounded out by Marco Arcidiacono.
Yeah, the top P11 goes to Marco Kika, and he starts the race flanked by Daniele Guttuso. Number 13, Daniel Cedro, shares row 7 with Ian Haycox. Marcellus Breuning, the leader of the Formula 2 Championship, is being flanked by Michael Morrison. Paul Foster can be found in P17, and next to him it's Ryan Williams. Alex Cameron starts 19th today. And the final driver in the top 20 is David Rossi.
I get both of the Arcidiaconos. Antonio sits in 21st with Philippe Urquhart starting 22nd. Reki Koivisto will be 23rd with Daniel Blackmon next to him in 24th. Donnie B. Good starts P25 with Randy Huff 26th. Matt Yeomans in 27th, and Jeff Olney did not get a lap time in. So with that, we wait for the cars to rev up as just about everybody has gridded. Just Marco Kika, Antonio, and Jeff Olney yet to get on the grid. A large field, which means lap traffic could definitely come into play out there. We're in round 7, halfway through the season. This kicks off the second half itself, as just those last 2 cars still waiting to come out. Look at all of them gridded up. Didn't see quite this many cars at the Dutch Grand Prix where this car debuted. Now they're out there. So as the engines start to rise, the lights are up, and the green flag is out here in the Netherlands as Michel Dudignon, not very good off the line for the second race in a row. And Mick Claridge manages to sneak past, or does he? He breaks a little bit earlier. They're going to go side by side. They almost touch. This time, though, they come out safe compared to Brazil, but Mick Claridge is ahead for the second race in a row of Michel Dudignon.
Behind him, AJ Bear almost loses control. Going side by side with Rob Olenek. He's immediately being put under pressure by Jamie Hall, who cannot get past him. Marco Kika and Marco Arcidiacono also side by side, but the rest of the drivers in front of them single file towards the sky flag.
Understand that Morrison might have had a little bit of trouble in turn 1. We might be able to get back to it later, but for now we're going to watch the action as the drivers complete their first lap. And now we'll come to the new section of the course. The cars, whoa, as a battle for second place, diving to the inside. Dimitri Houdaloutis trying to take that position away from Dudignon.
Yeah, this is probably the moment in the race that you have the opportunity to try and move on Michel Dudignon. So why not try and take it? Dimitri Houdaloutis fought. Didn't work, however, for him. The Greek driver already winning one position on over Trangerate, who's being put under pressure by Dave Price behind him in the Hans Ernst bocht. Nicola Kochi also a little bit pushing behind, single foul, however, and it seems like Dimitris Houdaloutis is losing ground to P2 slightly.
A slight battle that we saw in the Audi S between Trangerate and Price has separated. That is a battle for the championship, don't forget. Price actually falling off and under threat from Kochi. But as they reach the front stretch, everybody's starting to spread apart. And they now break for Tarzan once again.
Yeah, so close between the two. Dudignon really putting Mick Claridge under pressure. Now, we've talked about it before the race here, that this is such a difficult track to make overtakes in. And man, Michel Dudignon is putting Claridge under pressure, trying to force the Brit into a small mistake so he can immediately capitalize on that.
Yeah, and because of that, do you think we're going to see some aggressive moves, or do you think drivers are going to maybe play it patient and just wait for the opportunity?
Oh, man, that's difficult. Like, at this point of the race, I would almost say you would be patient. You would wait a little bit for a mistake, but once the clock is ticking and there's only a few laps left, that's the point of the race that you have to try an aggressive move. Just look at how close Dudignon is, less than a car length between the two, both sliding their cars into turn 10. Now a short run down towards the Audi S bocht. Mick Claridge slightly better on the exit there.
Michel was almost touching the gearbox of Claridge coming out of Vodafone. As they work their way through Hans Ernst, looks like they're starting to separate themselves from the Greek. Dimitri is falling backwards. We could have a two-horse race for the lead come the rest of this event. And I can report that Morrison has retired from the race. He tried to take it into the pits, and, well, I guess he didn't practice his pit stops enough because he actually slammed it into the Armco on the entry. My goodness, is that Frenchman close to Mick Claridge. Oh, and he goes a little bit wide into turn 1.
Oh, Mick Claridge completely cuts off the French driver there. He really had to, well, completely step on the brakes to avoid Mick Claridge there. Loses a little bit of time, but you can see immediately how quickly he closes the gap once again. It seems like Dudignon has more pace, but he doesn't have the track position.
And, you know, that brings to mind one of the unique features of this track that is kind of old school, is the fact that turns like Tarzan have quite a bit of banking for a road course.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Not only Tarzan, but there's several corners on this track that have that kind of banking, and the drivers have to really accommodate that in their races. But just look once again, Dudignon has completely caught up with Mick Claridge here, going towards the Vodafone bocht, trying a wider line here, taking more speed, more momentum through here. There's only a short run down towards the Hans Ernst bocht, and that wider line doesn't help Michel Dudignon for now. Single foul behind the leader. Now behind him over Trangerate, Dave Price, Nicola Kochi, they're all in pursuit of Dimitris Houdaloutis, Olenek and Bayer as well. The first... Oh.
Is that a cut course there from Michel, or was that a mistake? He suddenly dropped back drastically. I think it was a mistake. I think he got big wheel spin.
Yeah, exactly. If we go to a replay of that, it was in the middle of the Hans Ernst bocht. He just got completely loose. Almost rear-ended Mick Claridge there, but he saved it.
Yeah, you could see he was sliding through the corner, and then on top of it, when he tried to get to the power a second time, a whole load of counter steering to try and save the car. And Dave Price now in a side-by-side battle. That was with Trangerate. Trangerate almost lost another spot. He's trying to come back at him, and it looks like he can't quite make it through. So Dave Price gets himself into fourth, past his championship rival. That caused a chain reaction behind Olenek in a fight with Kochi. He manages to overtake him.
Yeah, but Nicola Kochi is not settling for that. He's putting it side by side almost in the schijfvlek. Rob Olenek goes wide. Nicola Kochi has more speed going to the Marlboro bocht. Oh, very late braking there for Nicola Kochi, but Rob Olenek fends him off for now. Immediately tries to take another look. Very close between all these drivers at the moment. They're almost fighting like there's only a few laps left.
I get the feeling that we're going to see a lot of that with these trains of cars that are honestly all throughout the field. As soon as one person does something, everybody else is going to pounce. So as they come through, oh, and Rob Olenek with a big mistake. And just as I say that, Nicola Kochi says, thank you very much. That's what I wanted.
AG Bear also trying to really profit from that.
Oh, and Paul Foster's had a problem. He's dropping multiple positions. Looks like this wasn't his error. It was Antonio Arcidiacono out-braking himself into Hans Ernst. Whew, almost turns him over. So as they get going once again, Antonio loses positions as well does Foster. They're 17th and 19th respectively.
Back in that battle that we were just seeing, Marco Arcidiacono is really joining that battle at the moment. The P9 driver very close to AG Bear at the moment. Going to the Rob Slotemaker bocht. Marco was not that close behind in the previous laps, but the battling really has allowed him to close the gap and really join that battle with AG Bear and Rob Olenek, who has completely lost connection to Nicola Kochi in front of him.
We were discussing it before the broadcast started that
Marco Arcidiacono almost lost it there going wide. I think it was through turn 7. Lost quite a bit of time, was being put under pressure by Jamie Hall. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. But we were talking about the errors, such as what Marco just did, that Rob Olenek is a little bit prone to in this car. Still kind of getting to grips with it. AJ Bear seeing if maybe he can pry this position away from Rob.
Going side by side, Michel de Jong is really putting pressure on McLaren at the moment. Side by side through the Arie Luijendijk bocht. On the inside, there's not a lot of grip there. More momentum for McLaren, but great driving from the Frenchman to really keep up the speed there. Now he has a nose in, going towards the Tarzan bocht. He has the inside. If he can brake later, he can get it 180 degrees. It's a long time you have the inside. Keeps it there, side by side. Doesn't get cut off, but McLaren's around the outside. Stays in front of the Frenchman for one more lap.
The immense trust between these two. I didn't press my mic, but I actually winced and made noises as they came into Tarzan because of how much he pinched him down to the apex, and still they came through without contact. These two certainly know how to race each other close, and Dudignon is trying desperately to get ahead. He may be ahead of the drivers that he wants to try and get points on in this race, but right now, he wants to get maximum points away from Mick Claridge. We're only on lap 6. He's got plenty of chances left to try and make it happen.
McLaren going sliding through the Marlboro bocht there. Going to the photo van bocht. Now, once again, we've seen this before. Michel Dudillon, a wider entry line. Trying to take a little bit more speed, but just on exit, he isn't as smooth as Mick Claridge here. And the Brit can just go earlier and smoother on the throttle and has more speed towards Hans Ernst here. Trying a little look on the inside. This is not one of the places that you can make a lot of moves. It seems like in this area, for several times, Michel de Jong has been really close in this area of the track. The Kumo bocht, the Arie Luijendijk bocht. He gets close here and is able to actually put his nose on the inside of Mick Claridge and try and move into turn 1.
You know, we talked to Mick a little bit about this last week, and it seemed like he had found something with the gearing to help him get off the line. Do you think at this point maybe Michel needs to start doing something to change the way he sets up the car to prevent this from happening? Because it certainly helped Mick get an edge over him.
Absolutely, especially in a track like this. We don't have something like Monaco in iRacing, but you can almost, the lack of overtaking opportunities, you can almost compare it with Monaco. It's so difficult to make an overtake in a track like this that the qualifying session and the start is so important that you have to be pitch perfect there. That's where you can win and lose the race very easily. And you can just see that Mick Claridge, even though he's around half a second slower than Michel de Jong, he stays in front of the French driver for now.
Love watching that on board heading around Scheivlach where they just drift around that embankment. Now coming through the back-to-back hairpins, Renault and Vodafone. And Dudignon trying to stay close. This is where he needs to be close, but I'm not sure that he's able to try and make an attack here into Hans Ernst. And indeed, he's going to stay behind for now. Behind these guys, though, things have been tight for the mid-pack. Both we followed Bear and RC Diacono as well. JB Hall and Marco Kika have had their own battle.
Yeah, there's a lot of little packs going on at the moment. Little 2-car groups, 3-car groups that are driving around everywhere. Especially the one that you just mentioned, the one between Marco Kika and Jamie Hall has been heating up a little bit. At the moment, there's a few car lengths between them, but Marco Kika has found some space, some pace in the race. He's currently driving around the P11 and putting Hall a little bit
sorry,
more
side
under
by
pressure.
side for our leaders. And another attempt coming out of Tarzan from Michel Dudignon, but couldn't quite make it work. This time he actually had the car next to Mick.
And we go to a replay of that. It seems like Mick Clare is just a little bit making a mistake on the exit there, sliding a little bit, just opening the door for Michel Dudignon, who immediately tried to capitalize on that, but not enough for him.
Almost looked like he was sending it in deep to keep him from outbreaking him into the corner, and was certainly costing him on the exit. As they come to Renault once again, just the pressure that Mick deals with every time he gets in front of Michel. It amazes me that he can deal with this for almost the entire race and still manage to beat him. Once again, getting close. This time he takes a look, tries to outbrake him down into Hans Ernst. He's been given space at the exit, but he's going to have to go the long way around to the second part of this chicane, and he just can't quite pull it off.
Beautiful defensive move from Mick Claridge there. Now, while this is going on, these drivers are losing a lot of speed because behind them, Dimitris Goudloudis is slowly catching them. I think the gap between them is around a second now. The Greek is really looking forward to once again mix himself in this battle for the lead, and he is not shy to attack Michel Dudignon for P2.
This time he doesn't manage to get to the inside into Tarzan. He holds him off, but indeed, we looked over the back of Mick Claridge, and you could see the speck of Dimitri Goudloudis closing in bit by bit with each corner of defense that Mick gives. Through Hunzerug and Schlotemacher, up over the crest of 5, the kink leading in that makes this braking oh so difficult, and then swinging it around this fast, swift right-hander onto the new set of the course, the part where this car absolutely struggles. Not a fan of slow corners.
No, but these drivers have to deal with it, and it seems like, especially in the next corner, that you'll see Mick Claridge is really good at dealing it here, because every time he has an exit just good enough to stay in front of Michel Dudignon once they break for the Hans Ernst bocht. This time, once again, it seems like the gap just grows with a car length once they go braking here. And you see that this time we're sliding a little bit for Mick Claridge. Mick Claridge doesn't have to defend as much. They just extend the gap slightly to P3.
Behind P3, we can't forget the battle for 4th with championship implications. Dave Price ahead of Trangarade still. And Trangarade has certainly not had a lack of trying to peel this away. You can see he's getting close to him, but his exit, which is oh so crucial on this front stretch, has been denied, and Price is going to stay safe yet again.
Nicola Kochi a little bit in the popcorn position for that in P6. Oh, Michel really close there in the Tarzan bocht to Mick Claridge, almost touching each other once again. Just avoiding each other. Mick Claridge stays in front for now once they get to the Hugelholz bocht.
And we keep bringing up the way that Mick held him back at Summit Point, but we can't forget that we had a similar fight going on at Brazil and Interlagos, where these two just were locked together, and the fight got so fierce that they actually ran into one another with a mere 2 laps to go, handing the win to Dave Price. And I know that Mick said that there's no ill feelings, and I believe him on that, but I can't help but think that these two do have to think about that as another attempt, this time going around the outside of Vodafone, but can't quite get it done. But these two have to be aware that they could yet again clatter into one another.
Absolutely, and to be honest, it doesn't seem like they're actually aware of that at the moment because they just keep going side by side in so many corners. Luckily for us, of course, but you're absolutely right. They have
course penalty. Cut course penalty for Michel Dudignon. I thought he was a little too sharp coming into Hans Ernst, and indeed, he dropped back and gave second away to Dimitri because of that penalty that he received from the iRacing software. Look at that.
4 wheels over the curb. So looking at the gap between him and McLaren, he's currently, let's see, 2.1 seconds behind the Brit. 1.1 seconds behind the Greek. Let's see that once he catches up with Dimitrios, how quickly he can make the pass there.
And we had another problem with Antonio Arcia-Diacono as we come back live to see Michel try to recover. Antonio did hit the wall, outbraked himself coming into the Hans Ernst chicane. You're going to see this was just a single car incident, locked up on him, and unfortunately the Armco being right next to the track means he immediately took damage.
Dave Price going very wide through the schijfvlak, and that gives almost an opportunity to over-triangulate. He tries a different line behind him. Cannot make it stick there, but very close. And with Michel Dudillon falling back a little bit, it has bunched up that battle for P4 with Dave Price, Triangulate and Nicola Cocci within a few car lengths of each other.
Yeah, Cocci much closer to Ove. Is Ove going to go defensive? Indeed, he keeps it right smack dab in the middle of the circuit to hold him off, knowing it's going to be hard to try and overtake him here in the second half of Hans Ernst. So as we watch these two battle, I just want to mention, I have faith that Michel has the pace to try and catch McClarridge, but what's different this time compared to when he had his mistake earlier in the race is now he's got Dimitri in between himself and the leader, and that's going to make it an extra headache to try to get back. As another defensive move from Ove Trangarate, heading down to the pit wall, trying to break, coming into Tarzan, both of them going way too deep, but Nicola Cocci has the run off the corner, and he's going to peel that away.
Great awareness for the Italian to really make that last minute steering maneuver to avoid the Norwegian, who was just sliding from the apex to the outside of the corner in the Tarzan bocht. Nicola Cocci getting P5. But what you were saying, Joe, you're absolutely right. Michel Dudillon is closing in on Dimitris Houdeloudis, and it is so difficult to make the overtake here. He is quicker than Houdeloudis, but is he quick enough to really have that extra edge that you need to make an overtake here? I don't know yet. He's really close, a car length between the two at the moment, as they go through the Renault bocht.
Indeed, he keeps getting closer to the rear of him, and this is going to be a different beast, although I anticipate that Dimitri's not going to give this up easily. So coming out of Vodafone, just a little bit too slippery on the power, so he won't have a chance to make the attack down into Hans Ernst. Ooh, bit deep in there, and you can see how much that holds up Michel, as unfortunately Dimitri, despite making a mistake, still not opening the door.
Wide entry line there from Michel Dudillon for the Kumo bocht, and that might actually help him a little bit stabilizing through the Arie Luijendijk bocht. Both going very wide on the throttle there. Only 2 car lengths between them, a little bit of draft. If you have a late braking maneuver, you can try and make a move in Tarzan bocht. He's gonna try it. Michel Dudillon sending it on the inside, side by side through the Tarzan bocht. Michel Dudillon stays there earlier, smoother on the throttle, and he makes it stick. And that's the Frenchman back to P2.
Tiny margins make the difference, and Michel Dudignon needed only 1 wheel in there, and he was able to overtake Dimitri. Brave stuff, but Michel now sets his sights to Mick Claridge, about 1.3 seconds up to the leader, and he's got 10 laps to do it.
And we've been looking a lot at the battles at the front of the field. If we go a little bit further back, the battle for P10, Marco Kika is really putting the pressure on Jamie All for basically the last 5 to 10 laps now. The Finnish driver, who's of course doing quite well in the championship standings, is trying to get forward as much as possible to score his points. But he's not finding a way past the British driver at the moment. He's really keeping his car as wide as possible. And well, no luck for Kika so far.
Indeed, Kika qualified in this position. Probably would have liked to have qualified a little bit higher, but the way he's been stuck behind the number 9 car as they come out of Vodafone. He's got to watch out, though. They do have Daniel Sadro not too far behind. If they start fighting, they could bring him into this mix.
Now, one thing that you just mentioned is something I just realized is that all the drivers that started in the top 10 are still driving in the top 10. The positions have maybe changed a little bit, but we don't have any high-profile retirees so far today. So that's very good for all the drivers in the championship hopes.
In fact, I think two of our biggest movers are Hideki Koivisto, who started 23rd. He's now sitting in 18th. And then how about Donnie Be Good? Started in 25th, now in 20th. So 5 position gains for each of them. I guess you could say the same for Matt Yeomans as well, from 27th to 22nd.
Well, talking about big movers, Michel de Dion couldn't move a lot further forward starting on pole position. He has lost 1 position so far, but he's doing his hardest to get that position back. The gap between him and Mick Claret has been brought down to only 0.4 of a second. And looking in front of them, Joe, there's a little bit of traffic forming in the form of Philippe Urquhart.
And that could be exactly what Michel needs. So while maybe the virtual tourists could be relaxing over on the beach nearby, there's no relaxing for these two drivers because things are going to get a whole lot more tense here in just a moment. It's going to depend on where they catch Philip.
Michel de Dion right on the gearbox of Mick Claret in through the Hans Ernst bocht. Here the Kumo bocht. He's tried it several times here already. Doesn't have the momentum at the moment to put his car already side by side here on the exit, though. Good run. You tried it on Dimitri Soudaludis and made it stick. It seems like Philippe Urquhart is actually giving them space. Mick Claret tries to get the draft. Oh, I think he actually might have touched him there.
That's a brave move, but even a braver move down to the inside. He gets chopped off, though. Michel Dudignon giving it another try as they come off the corner. I don't know how Mick Claret did not run into that lapped car.
Wow.
From above, it looked like he did.
Yeah, absolutely. But he stayed in front. He avoided him at least. He avoided the collision and also avoided the collision with Michel Dudignon once the French driver tried to move into the Thyssen-bocht. Now very close here through turn 5. Schijfelijk is not an opportunity, not a turn where you try and move. Mick Claret is going a little bit sideways, but they have to stay single file. Doesn't seem like Mick Claret has damage though, so if they had contact, it seems like he can just continue the way he was.
Yeah, and Philip is still out there as well. Doesn't seem to be damaged, so if anything, just a moment of shock probably for both of them. Mostly for Philip, I think. Oh, he's very close. Look at how defensive Mick is staying this time. Drifts all the way back over, forces him to the outside, but this could actually be a boon for Dudignon. Can't quite keep his nose in there through the second half of the corner. If he could just hold around the outside, I think he could make that stick.
I think so as well. I almost was worried that Michel Dudignon would have another cut course penalty because this time on the outside he cut the course quite a bit. Luckily for the Frenchman, he can continue in the exit here of the Arie Luijendijk bocht. Again, Mick Claret is trying to defend the inside, at least showing a little bit of maneuver towards the inside, defending the inside here as well in the Thyssen-bocht. Michel Dudignon tries to have the outside, cannot keep it side by side, have to stay single file. And while this all was going on, in the meantime, Marco Kika has found a way past Jamie Hull. Which means that the Finnish driver is now driving 10th.
Yeah, the area that Michel cut always struck me as interesting about this track, especially that it's allowed here in iRacing how far over you can go. But there in Hans Ernst as well as in Kumho, they have that weird material. What is that, Johan, that they've got down there? Because it doesn't quite look like AstroTurf.
No, I think that actually might be kind of bricks. I actually do not know, but I think it might be a kind of extension, a kind of brick-like substance to really give a little bit of a hard pavement for the drivers to go over. Michel Dudignon trying it on the inside here, side by side, almost hitting Mick Claret there. That's in the Vodafone bocht. Now once again he's on the inside, side by side, but Mick Claret is on the inside once to go to the Hans Ernst bocht. Braking a little bit later. Now you said that this was probably one of the corners he could make it stick, but it seems that Mick Claret brakes late enough to stay in front. Wants to go through the chicane.
Oof, Mick Claret is not giving an inch. He's not giving a centimeter to Michel Dudignon. We've seen him chop him off multiple times. This is getting to be elbows out racing. And it has indeed brought Dimitri Houdeludis up to them. In fact, it's almost going to bring Dave Price into this thing. We could see a four-way battle. And that's going to get very, very interesting in the final stages of this race. No attempt into Tarzan this time from Michel Dudignon, but it's starting to get a little bit creative in the places that we're seeing passing moves taken by the Frenchman.
In previous seasons, I've nicknamed Mick Claris the Bulldog in the way he was defending. Well, this race victory is a bone that he's not letting go, because he is defending it with as hard as he can at the moment. Looking at Dave Price's lap time, he's getting closer with almost half a tenth per lap at the moment. So it really will be a four-train battle for the victory very soon.
This is almost comparable to modern F1 in a way. Sometimes people complain there's a lack of passing, but I tell you what, there is no lack of excitement in this race. Despite the difficulty in overtaking that we've seen, it is giving us a monumental battle out here. And this time he is close once again, but he squirms a little bit under the power. I'm not sure that Michel is quite close enough. Indeed, a little bit of a defensive maneuver, just drifting over slightly in the braking for Mick Claridge.
It's a very different racing line through the Hans Ernst-bocht there, Michel Dudignon, to get a little bit more momentum out of it, but it doesn't help him towards the Kuma-bocht. Didn't make it stick a lot more on the inside through the Kuma-bocht than Mick Claridge. Doesn't help him that much to get closer through the Arie Luijendijk-bocht, but look behind him, Dimitris Houdeludis is very close. And we saw at the beginning of the race that even though Mick and Michel were fighting, Dimitrios wasn't afraid to put his nose in as well to get that P2. He is not afraid to really interfere with this battle for the lead, and I think that Michel Dudignon has to start looking behind him as well.
And as all this was happening, we had a pass for 18th. Williams overtook Foster. I'm not sure where this took place though. And we understand actually there was an incident involved this. Ryan Williams up ahead. That's Foster behind. I'll give a shout if we miss anything up at the front. Braking down into the first corner. Oh, just a little bit too deep. Almost turns him around, and it looks like he let him back through then. Meanwhile, we got to come back up front because Mick Claridge has another attack from Michel Dudignon. This time he's trying to go the long way around a Vodafone, but there's no grip off the racing line. Still, as you said, Dimitri Houdeludis threatening from behind the Frenchman. If he keeps making moves like that, he could find himself losing a spot.
Absolutely, he's 100% in the popcorn position at the moment, looking at all the moves that Michel Dudignon's, all the different racing lines that he is taking, and it actually might help him set himself up for a move on Mick Claridge, but it also leaves a gap open for the Greek driver to try and move here through the Arie Luijendijk-bocht. Very good exit here, a little bit closer than we've seen him in the previous lap, Michel Dudignon. Mick Claridge tries to break the draft, he's succeeding with that. The French driver takes a look on the inside, but Mick Claridge fends him off, just sliding towards the inside, and Michel Dudignon cannot make that move stick. Dave Price behind him is also slowly catching to them.
And I can report sad news that Paul Foster has taken to the pits. He will lose a few positions, I think, as Antonio Arcidiacono and Randy Huff, as well as Philip Uckart, are back out on track and probably will overtake him by the time things are done. But boy, it's hard to take our eyes off this battle for the lead. Apologies to the mid-pack. We haven't really covered them a whole lot, but this is for the top spot, for the win of the race. It's hard to deny a tense fight like this the attention it deserves.
Absolutely, I can see that in the Formula 2 battle, Marcellus Breuning is heavily fighting with Ian Haycox. That's, I think, for the victory in the Formula 2 championship. But in the front of the field, it is still between Mick Claridge and Michel Dudignon. Dimitris Houdeludis has lost a few car lengths though, Joe. It seems like the Greek driver is falling behind as Michel Dudignon tries it on the exit of the Hans Ernst chicane. Doesn't make it stick there.
When ahead of them, there was a car with a big problem. Don Good hit the wall coming out of the final corner. Luijendijk, wonder if he's going to get in the way of these drivers because he seems to be limping around somewhat. Looks like another good run from Michel Dudignon, and that means another defense from Mick Claridge. Covers off the inside of Tarzan. Behind them, oh, almost getting into the back of them as Michel Dudignon could have nearly pushed Mick Claridge around coming off turn 1.
I think there was not nearly, because Mick Claridge had a little wiggle. I think they touched each other, but Michel Dudignon let off his gas pedal, off his throttle pedal to help Mick Claridge stabilize. But the line that Mick Claridge is taking over the start-finish straight is really interesting, because he defends all the way on the inside, he doesn't stay on the outside, he stays in the middle, almost in a reactionary move. Ooh, there's a car going through the schijfvlak there, it's lap traffic. He stays in the middle, so he can always respond to Michel Dudignon. If he tries a dive bomb or tries it on the outside, Mick Claridge sets himself up in such a way that he is always the advantageous position to react to it.
That was Randy Huff that we saw trying to recover the car. Just had an off in schijfvlak. Down to 3 laps to go. 2.5 really, as we're nearly done with this lap. Mick Claridge safe down into Hans Ernst.
Quickest car on track at the moment, Nicola Cocci in P5. And you can see behind these two leaders, it's a 5-car battle. Nicola Cocci is catching up quickly. Second quickest car over Trangerate in P6, who's also closing in. So it seems like, ooh!
Big mistake from Michel Dudignon, but somehow he doesn't lose time in that. That car was all kinds of sideways coming out of Kumho up to Lyondijk, and still he's keeping the pressure on.
I almost had him written out for today. I was sure that he would lose it. Great save from the French driver, and look at Dimitrios Soudoulides. He didn't even get closer. Amazing save from Michel there.
2 laps left in round 7 here in the Lotus 49 World Cup. Dudignon is trying so hard not to be denied. In fact, he does need to worry a little bit, because Dave Price, even though he's in 4th, he's not too far back. So a mistake from Dudignon, even an off, could put him behind the driver who is currently ahead of him in the points.
And luckily for Michel Dudignon, he will at least gain 1 position in the standings, because he is in front of Nicola Cocci, and there was only 1 point between the two before this race. So he at least sees himself move to the top 3. But I don't think that the French driver will settle for P2 out there, Joe. I think that I've seen enough races for him that Michel will always go for that victory. With only 1.5 lap to go, time is running out for Dudignon.
Yeah, I think he's got the bit between his teeth. He wants another championship, does Michel Dudignon. Ove Trangerud would sure love to win his first. But right now he is settled back in 6th. He's going to join this train pretty soon. But he's got a lot of cars to try and overtake, which is not out of the question as the white flag flies. As the cars gather together like this, there is always the chance that a wreck up at the front could collect a bunch of cars behind them.
Absolutely. Look how close Dimitrios is, and especially Dave Price and Nicola Cocci as well. 1 mistake of the car in front, 1 spin of the cars in front. It's quite easy to collect them. Michel Dudignon didn't manage to get past Mick Claridge in the Tarzanbocht. There was probably, with only 1 more lap to go, the best overtaking maneuver to really seal the deal. I think the last time that they go towards the Hans Ernst chicane, the old Audi S-bocht, that is the next best overtaking maneuver. He's really close here though, towards the schijfvlak. Tries a little move on the inside, a little look on the inside, but doesn't get it side by side.
This is for all the marbles now. A little bit bad exit. Wow, off into the grass for Michel Dudignon, trying to see if he can poke and prod his way through. Mick Claridge now into the back-to-back hairpins out of Renault. Up towards Vodafone. We've seen a pass attempt into here. Not happening this time as he's setting himself up for the exit. It was mentioned by Johan, the Audi S, the Hans Ernst chicane, is one of the best places to make a pass, but it's not going to be this time. He is way too far back. He could maybe try to get himself a launch off of Lyondijk, but I'm not sure that's going to be likely. A bad exit off the corner, though. Defensive move from Mick Claridge, trying the long way around. Can he make it stick? The corner has some embankment, but this one doesn't. It's going to be a drag race to the line. Mick Claridge is trying to hold him off. He tries to park it on the apex, but he gets a shove from behind. Both of them are going around. Dimitrios Soudoulides is going to take the win in the last corner from 3rd. Oh my goodness!
Amazing from Dimitrios, capitalizing, and this is what we meant with the popcorn precision, just waiting for the mistake of the drivers in front of you. He saw it and he took it with both hands. Great win from Dimitrios.
the last thing you would have expected. We thought it was going to be between these two. Tried to be sneaky Mick Claridge, parking it on the apex, and it hurt both of them as the Greek driver just takes advantage. Look at that at the line. 3 drivers, the podium separated by less than a second. We're going to watch one more from on board. This is Dudignon's view. You can see the contact. Both of them trying to save the cars. And then as we look over to the side, suddenly from behind, there goes Dimitri. Oh my God. So as the rest of the cars finish, go ahead, Johan.
I wanted to say this is heartbreak for Mick Claridge, so leading from start to finish. Well, except the last corner of the race where he got overtaken there. Great job as well, though, for both Mick and Michel to not spin each other around there, and at least getting a podium, both of them in P2 and P3.
Wow, we need to catch our breath after that one. We're going to take a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. We're going to come back with the driver interviews as well as the official results. And stick around, because on screen you're going to see all the upcoming races on the GSRC. Welcome back to the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network coverage of the Lotus 49 World Cup. Here in the Netherlands at Zandvoort, we just watched round 7, and, well, Dimitri Houdeloudis led a single lap. It was the last one. We're going to watch how he won it. This is the onboard view. The battle all race long was between those two that you can see side by side. That's Mick Claridge and Michel Dudignon. They made contact in the final corner when Mick tried to park it right at the apex. And you could see as they lost momentum, the Greek driver just slipped through with inches to spare and took the win. So with that 0.8 of a second separation from first to third, your finishing order is Dimitri Houdaloudas taking the win. Mick Claridge finishing second, less than a tenth behind. In fact, actually 0.8 of a second between the top four, I should say. Michel Dudignon, 0.2 of a second behind Dimitri. Dave Price as well in fourth, less than a second back. Nicola Kochi in fifth, only 1.3 seconds behind the leader. 1.8 for Ove Trangerade. And then it's the first big gap that we have. The top six, all within 2 seconds. Rob Olenek finishes in seventh, with AJ Bear finishing in eighth. Marco Arcidiacono manages to get ninth, and Marco Kika does get a top 10.
Jamie Hull finishes one position behind him after that heavy battle with Kika in P11, with Daniel Cedro behind him. Big gap of 12 seconds between Daniel Cedro and Daniele Guttuso, who finishes the race in 13th position in front of Marcellus Broinu, who wins the race in the Formula 2 Championship today. Ian Hay comes home in P15 in front of Hideki Koifisto. David Rossi wins 3 positions today to come home 17th, and he finishes in front of Ryan Williams. Daniel Blackman comes home in 19th, and the last driver in the top 20 is Matt Jamons.
Paul Foster finishes 21st, 1 lap down, with Don Good finishing 22nd. Antonio Arcidiacono will be 23rd at the end of things, with Randy Huff 24th and Philip Urquhart in 25th. And we have our only 3 DNFs out of this large field. That's a great result for these guys, Jeff. Only 26th, Michael Morrison at 27th, and Alex Cameron finishing at 28th. Let's go to our interviews, including our winner, Dimitri Houdaloudas. I don't know if this is a strictly American phrase, but it goes, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, Dimitri, and I think today is one of those days.
Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to stay in touch with the guys in front. I think Michel was very fast there, but he couldn't make a move stick to pass Mick. And thankfully, I managed to stay on the toe. They were fighting throughout the whole race. I didn't have any pressure from behind because it's a really very tricky track to navigate. So, yeah, I guess I was lucky in the last corner. I set it up properly, and I managed to get them on the line.
Take a very, very sneaky win. Now, before that, you did have second place briefly when Michel had an issue and found himself having to give time back from a cut course penalty. When he came back at you, it didn't look like you looked like you were trying to defend somewhat, but didn't fight too hard once he finally had that nose in. Was that a case of just trying to get to the end and want to preserve the car, or is it just so hard to hold the outside in that corner?
From the very beginning, when Michel was behind me, I didn't have any intention to fight with him because the others would catch up as well. They were very close. So I thought that it would be better to let him go and try to catch up with Mick because he was making a little bit of a gap at that point. So I didn't fight it at all. I just took the outside line and tried to stick to their toe and wait until the end.
So we've got 5 rounds left to go. Obviously, it'd be a tall ask for you to try and get into this championship, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you are 5th different winner out of 7 races. Do you think you can come in and maybe take the whole thing?
I think the only possibility to make that happen is if the guys, Michel and Mick, somehow do not manage to take the remaining victories, because let's be honest, they're much faster, at least for me. But I think that at least the last 2 weeks, my pace has improved significantly. So I hope I can be some kind of a danger. Maybe I can play a role and maybe be in contention of some wins on the remaining stages of the season.
All right, we'll see if that is the case, and hopefully we'll see you in a week's time at Imola.
Thank you, Joy.
That was Dimitri Houdaloutis, who took a surprise win here at Zandvoort, but I'm sure he's very happy about it. Let's hand over to Johan, who's caught up with second place driver Mick Claridge.
Yeah, Mick Claridge, welcome to the booth. Mick, before we start, I don't know, do I say congratulations after this? Because what a race you had with what an ending.
Hi, Johan. Yeah, no, you can say that. I'm happy with the position, but I mean, I didn't think I'd be anywhere near the front. I was so slow at this track. Probably one of my worst tracks on the series. I laughed my head off when I beat Michel at the start. I thought there was no way I was going to get him at the start, but I was giggling as I was turning into turn one, and I shouldn't have really, should I?
But you say that, and we actually were talking about during the race as well. What was really the magic spice at this race start? What set you apart from Michel when the race started? How did you get past him? Were you just a lot cleaner?
Yeah, I had a pretty good first gear ratio, and I sort of sacrificed my second gear ratio on the track for the start. So my second gear was really close to my first gear, and that was where I flat shifted it as well. I just kept my foot down and just dumped the clutch and flat shifted up, and it only just sort of stayed gripped up. There was a little bit of wheel spin in second, but I was lucky really. But yeah, I knew I'd be so slow in the race. I used higher tire pressures just to try and be quick at the start. That probably helped at the start as well. You get a lot more bite off the line.
Well, you after the race started, you of course were under a lot of pressure by Michel. Did you do anything different than in other races to really set yourself up for the defensive race that you had to do? Did you, for example, try different racing lines? Did you practice defensive driving with other drivers throughout the week?
Not at all, because I honestly thought Michel was so fast this week. I just thought watching him disappear into the distance, so I never practiced anything offline or any defensive, driving anywhere. So a couple of the braking zones, I was completely lost, and I didn't know where I was going, and even down to the last corner when I come through the last chicane and Michel was right on me, and he held the inside line. When I slowed down for the fast right on the last lap, I was in the wrong gear. I was in fourth gear because I was just so shocked to see how close he was behind me there, And so no, I didn't do any training whatsoever on any completely weird lines or anything.
You come home with P2. Now, if I calculate correctly, this actually means that you move up to the top 5 in the championship at this moment. With 5 races to go, you're in the top 5. How much further do you think you can go in the championship?
I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I've got a couple of horrible tracks for me coming up. Spa, I'm normally rubbish at that, and Nürburgring, I will not finish that race. I will crash. I'm telling you now. You'll see me upside down somewhere.
Oh, I mean, you also felt that Zandvoort was a bad track for you when you almost led from start to finish. So.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the gap in qualifying. It was nearly half. Was it over half a second? I think it was something like that, wasn't it?
Just under it, right? In the end, you come home with P2. You move yourself up in the championship. Congratulations with another podium here.
Yeah, thanks, Johan. See you later.
That was Mick Claridge coming home in P2. Now, in the meantime, you have caught up with Nicola Kochi, Joe.
Indeed, the driver who finished 5th, but still within a second and a half of the leaders. Nicola, it probably felt like they were just within reach, but also just out of reach.
Yeah, hi guys. I was pushing from the first lap to the last one, and we were so matched in the pace. Sometimes I was gaining a tenth or two. Sometimes I was losing a tenth or two. I was kind of gaining back some of the gap when I was alone. So this told me that from first to sixth, I think we were very, very close in pace. The only one that it was, I think, clearly faster from judging the other race was Michel, but it seems from my perspective that he didn't have the chance to stay in front and go away. So we were so packed together and in the first 5 to 6 places, and it seems that it's going to be a great race to watch from my perspective. I don't know if from yours.
Oh, it was a lot of fun to watch. I can guarantee you that. This has to be somewhat encouraging because I know you were downplaying yourself a little bit in the forums with Michel so close behind you in the points before this race, obviously now ahead. But you finished well within reach of both him, Price, and Trangerade, who were closest to you in the points in this championship.
Honestly, I'm still happy if I'm able to reach top 5 with all the fast guy there, and that's exactly what happened. And now I think they should add Dimitrios to the very fast guy as well, because it showed that it's gaining a lot of consistency and a lot of speed in the last races. So staying in top 5, it's becoming even harder than before. But I think that this is my objective overall, and it's still good placement for me. Of course, I will not able to hold Michel and Mick, but hopefully with a little bit of luck, should be around there at the end of the championship.
It certainly looks like you're placing yourself in a good position to be able to do that. One last one before we let you go. Next week is Imola. Is there going to be some extra practice to guarantee yourself a podium for that?
Yeah, honestly, Imola is one of my favorite track, and I already did some practice in the past with the 49, but Imola is like a good track and bad track at the same time for me, because sometimes I can get bump into some very annoying issues with the technical side of it. I've got a few frame drops, of course, in the last turn, but everybody knows that. So I'm kind of confident from the pace side, but a little bit scared on the technical side. So, of course, it's going to be a track that I know very well. But yeah, that's not enough. You need to check all the boxes,
Absolutely. Well, I guess that's a call out to all of our Italian fans watching, to all the Italian nerds. Time to go help Nicola make sure that he's got all of his technical issues solved. Thanks for coming and talking to us, Nicola, and best of luck next week.
Thank you, guys. See you there.
5th place finisher here today at Zandvoort. That's going to wrap things up for us. And of course, we want to give a big thank you to the Lotus 49 community and to iRacing for bringing GSRC back and for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure go and subscribe. There's a big red button that says subscribe. It's pretty obvious. If you click that, you won't miss a moment here on IESN. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. They're listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you head on over to our page, the GSRC YouTube page, we also have a big red button that says subscribe. Make sure and click that as well, and you won't miss a moment on the GSRC. As we mentioned, the next race, we're going over to Italy. That'll be Imola, Saturday, November 3rd at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.